My name is Jessica, and I am 31 years old. The day my husband died is burned into me in a way time will never erase. Not because of the rain or the gray sky or the sound of the church bells, but because nobody from my family came to my husband's funeral. Not even my parents nor my best friend. They all went to my sister's engagement party instead. I remember standing at the front of the chapel, my hands shaking so badly I had to lock my fingers together just to stay upright, staring at the closed casket and waiting for footsteps that never came. Every few seconds, my eyes drifted to the back doors, foolishly hoping they would open and I would see my mother rushing in, hair messy, eyes full of regret, or my father's familiar stiff walk, or even my best friend slipping into a pew and giving me that look that said, "I'm here now." But the doors stayed shut, the air stayed heavy, and the silence screamed louder than any cry I could have made. My husband, Daniel, had been my anchor since I was 22, the one person who chose me without conditions, without comparisons, without ranking me below someone else. And now as he lay there in that polished wooden box, I realized how alone I truly was. The pastor spoke about love and loss, about how Daniel was kind and dependable, about how he always showed up for people. And that word, showed up, kept echoing in my head because the people who were supposed to show up for me simply didn't. As the service went on, whispers floated through the room from coworkers and neighbors who had come out of respect for Daniel, and I caught fragments like, "Where's her family?" and "Didn't her parents make it?" Each whisper felt like a small cut, not deep enough to kill me, but enough to make sure I felt everything. I tried to focus on Daniel's face in my memory, his crooked smile, the way he squeezed my hand twice to say, "I love you," without words, but anger kept pushing its way in, uninvited and sharp. I knew exactly where my family was. I knew my sister was standing in a decorated hall somewhere, showing off her ring, laughing, posing for photos, while my parents smiled proudly beside her, as if the world hadn't just ended for me. Even my best friend, the one who promised she would always be there no matter what, chose balloons and champagne over a funeral. When the time came to lower the casket, the sky seemed to darken, and my legs nearly gave out as I stepped closer, watching the ropes tighten, hearing the soft mechanical sound as Daniel was slowly lowered into the ground. That was the moment something inside me cracked open completely, because as we lowered the casket, my phone lit up with a message from my mom that read, "We need to talk now," followed by notification after notification, missed calls stacking up one after another until there were 36 missed calls, glaring back at me from the screen. 36, while my husband was being buried, while I was standing there with dirt on my shoes and tears I could no longer hold back. My hands felt numb as I stared at the screen, my heart pounding not with hope but with a bitter, hollow rage. Now she wanted to talk. Not when I begged her to come. Not when I cried on the phone and told her I couldn't do this alone. Not when I said, "Please, Mom, I need you." No. Now, when it was too late to change anything, she suddenly needed me. The hypocrisy of it all made my stomach twist. I could almost hear her voice in my head, already defensive, already full of excuses about timing and misunderstandings and how my sister's engagement was important, too. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without answering, my fingers curling into fists as the final prayer was said. Dirt hit the casket with dull thuds, each one sounding like a final goodbye, and I realized something terrifying and clarifying at the same time. The people I shared blood with had made their choice, and it wasn't me. As the crowd slowly dispersed, offering awkward hugs and murmured condolences, I stood frozen, staring at the fresh mound of earth, knowing that when I walked away from this grave, I would be leaving more than just my husband behind. I would be leaving behind the illusion that my family would ever choose me when it truly mattered. I didn't go home after the funeral, not right away. I sat in my car with my forehead resting against the steering wheel, listening to my phone vibrate again and again in the cup holder, the screen lighting up with my mom's name until it finally went dark from inactivity. 36 missed calls turned into more, and then messages started coming in from my dad, my sister, even my best friend, all saying different versions of the same thing. "Please call us. This isn't what you think. We didn't know it would hurt you this much. I laughed out loud at that last one, a broken, humorless sound that startled even me. Hurt me this much? My husband was in the ground and they were surprised I was hurt. When I finally drove home, the house felt wrong without Daniel's shoes by the door, without the faint sound of his music drifting from the kitchen. I collapsed onto the couch, still wearing my funeral clothes. And that was when I finally opened my mom's messages. She wrote that my sister's engagement party had been planned for months, that relatives had flown in. That canceling would have caused a scene. She said they assumed I would understand because I was strong. Reading that word, strong, made something in me snap. I realized they had used that label my entire life as an excuse to abandon me whenever my sister needed attention. Whenever something shinier appeared, being strong to them meant being silent. It meant swallowing pain so others could celebrate. I typed out a response and deleted it at least 10 times before finally writing, "You chose a party over my husband's funeral. There is nothing left to explain." Within seconds, my phone rang. I didn't answer. I let it ring until it stopped, then turned the phone face down. The next morning, my sister showed up unannounced, still wearing a diamond ring that caught the light as she gestured dramatically, tears smudging her makeup as she said she never meant for things to turn out this way. She told me Daniel would have understood, that he would have wanted the family to be happy. That was when I stood up and calmly asked her to leave. I told her she didn't get to speak for my husband. Not now, not ever. Her face hardened, and for the first time, she said what she really felt, that I was selfish, for making everything about my grief, that life didn't stop just because I lost someone. Those words hurt more than I expected, but they also freed me. Because in that moment I saw her clearly, not as my little sister I needed to protect, but as someone who had benefited from my silence for too long. After she left, my dad called and tried a different approach, reminding me of everything they had done for me growing up, listing sacrifices like debts I supposedly owed them. I listened quietly and then told him that love wasn't supposed to be transactional, that showing up wasn't a favor. It was a choice, and they had made theirs. Days turned into weeks, and the calls slowed, then stopped. The quiet that followed wasn't empty the way I feared. It was peaceful. I started sorting through Daniel's things, crying when I needed to, smiling when I found notes he had hidden for me in books, remembering that I had been loved deeply by at least one person in this world. At work, people treated me gently, and neighbors checked in, and strangers showed more kindness than my own family ever had. That contrast taught me a painful but powerful lesson. Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who stands beside you when everything falls apart. One afternoon, I finally listened to a voicemail from my mom, her voice shaky as she said she was sorry, that she hoped we could move past this someday. I didn't feel anger anymore when I heard it, just distance. I realized forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation, and healing didn't require reopening wounds. I texted back one sentence: "I need space, and I'm choosing myself." Now, turning off my phone afterward felt like setting down a weight I'd been carrying for years. Standing alone in my living room that night, I spoke out loud to Daniel, telling him I would be okay, that I would build a life he'd be proud of, one where I didn't beg to be chosen. Losing him broke me, but being abandoned by my family rebuilt me into someone who knew her worth. If you're listening to my story and you've ever felt invisible, replaceable, or abandoned when you needed love the most, know this: you are not weak for hurting, and you are not wrong for walking away from people who couldn't show up for you. And if you want more real emotional stories about betrayal, strength, and reclaiming your life, make sure you subscribe to the channel now, because these stories deserve to be heard, and so do you.